Hello everyone, great to see you again for this new video. Today I'm going to give you a good part of the basic method, which will allow people in survival situations to feed themselves with wild plants. This is going to be for people who have little knowledge on the subject. But of course, it will not replace the perfect knowledge necessary of the environment and the biotope in which you evolve. Firstly, I must tell you that there is a very popular edibility test that was developed by the American Army. This test is dangerous, especially in the final phases. When you start eating plants that you don't know in quantity, because that's when the toxicity of the plants reveals itself. By using this test, you are going to let many toxic plants pass, and even some that are deadly. I won't elaborate more on this test, but I particularly advise against its use. One last thing, to be very clear, the benchmarks I'm going to give you should only be used in case of vital necessity. My basic instruction is to only eat what we certainly know, especially since it's possible to go a long time without eating. In reality, weeks. You should see this as a guide that will allow you to outperform in difficult conditions. The benchmarks I'm going to give you fall into two main categories. We're going to have the first rules, which are the rules of edibility, and in the second part, we're going to look together at the benchmarks that will allow us to reject this or that plant, this or that vegetable. The first rule is that of aggregate fruits. Aggregate fruits are fruits that present themselves like blackberries or raspberries, not to be confused with cluster fruits like grapes. So we're going to find them all over the planet. We're going to find them in Europe, in Australia, in Alaska, in the Philippines, in Africa, in the Pacific Islands. Even at the level of the Arctic Circle, they are always safe. So there is also a rule common to all fruits. It's that you have to take them ripe, because green, they are often indigestible, even cooked. So, as far as fruits are concerned, there is a family that you need to learn to recognize. It's the family of plum trees, prunus, the blackthorn. So you should know that all plums are edible all over the planet, and that you have them in the wild everywhere except in Australia. Next, we'll discuss conifers. It's the resinous trees that bear pine cones that are going to interest us. Some give seeds, the pine nuts. They are all edible across the planet, so there is no need to recognize them or really differentiate them, since they are all edible. So it's very nourishing when we can exploit them. Here, on the black pine, it will be difficult to exploit them because the pine cones are very small and the pine nuts are almost non-existent. To open pine cones before the season, place them near or over a fire to expose them to heat. They open, and then you can easily retrieve all the pine nuts. As for the cambium now, I'm going back to it. Everything that is coniferous, except for the yew, which has a deadly cambium, the cambium is recoverable on all these trees. It is edible, but not always exploitable, depending on the terrain. If it's very dry, depending on the season, it can be difficult to exploit. For the other trees that have an edible cambium, you have to refer to a list that I gave in the previous video. So here, some rose hips that are still left. At this time, we are in April, early April, so this is the whole fruit of the eagle that we can eat slightly sweet, even at this time. So if we stick to the rules that I'm going to give you later on berries, we shouldn't eat them, except of course when we know them. So as far as lichens are concerned, now here we have Avernia prunastri. It's one of the most well-known lichens, so here we really have some beautiful specimens. There's no pollution here. You should know that the more pollution you have, the fewer different types of lichens you have. So, with lichens, there are two important rules you need to know. You should know that toxic lichens across the planet are all yellow in color. There are 3 of them. They are alpine or semi-alpine, so there could be some here because we are about 1,000 meters up. So to simplify, when you are in the presence of lichens, you eliminate all the yellow lichens, and then you can take any lichens, provided you boil them to be sure, because you have some lichens that can contain a bit of toxicity when they are raw. So now I'm going to talk to you about ferns, the universal rule of ferns. You should know that across the entire planet, all young fern shoots are edible. There are none listed as toxic. So you should also know that the nutritional value of the fern is quite low, but it allows one to survive. Ferns, especially marsh ferns, are often excellent, particularly in the tropics. So now we're going to talk about cereals and grasses. All cereals are edible across the planet. Generally, we already know them, but we need to learn how to spot them. Then you have the wild grasses, like here. So grasses, generally we can recognize them because they are hollow stems. You have full nodes and you have an inflorescence at the top here. You have the inflorescences. So these are flowering plants that are extremely common all over the planet and turn into seeds. So these seeds are edible. But there are some that are toxic, even deadly. So they need to be tested to be sure. When we don't know them, so just taste them. So even for the deadly ones, it is very toxic. It's not dangerous because it takes a significant amount for it to be toxic. So you have to taste them. If they are bitter, peppery, or if they have an unpleasant taste, you have to reject them on the way. Know that bamboos are grasses, so all bamboo seeds are edible worldwide, as well as the shoots, which are full of starch. Anne's dog, for example, is also a grass, which is edible, but its root is not edible. Another important survival rule, when you come across ruins of old dwellings, always look for the area where the vegetable garden was. Generally, it's to the south, well exposed. You also have a landmark. These are the fruit trees that are often still there. Or you have old trees and you spot fruit trees. So these are areas where you will find many resources for plant food. So going around, I find a slightly more humid area, which is to the south indeed, and I find dead nettle, dandelion. There's even burdock a little further away. So now you start to have plants and something to feed yourself. So I need to talk to you now about the thistle family. All thistles are edible, with the exception of one. It's the glue thistle. So that one, we don't find it in metropolitan France, but you will find it all around the Mediterranean, elsewhere as well as in Corsica. So you have it in Portugal, Spain, North Africa, Italy, Greece, Crete, Cyprus, Turkey, all of Asia Minor. So you have to learn to recognize it. It's a thistle that is quite widespread, easy to recognize. It's deadly. It doesn't grow beyond 700 meters. So if you avoid this one, all thistles are consumable at the level of the leaves and the root. So let's continue this overview with water lilies and lotuses. They are all edible around the world, especially the stump, which is very fleshy and often excellent. So they absolutely must be dug up. They are often at shallow depths. So the best thing is to dig them up underwater and eat them. You can eat them cooked or raw. Then there are the bulbs. So the bulbs, it's a bit special. So these are roots that have often rounded swellings. So the bulbs, as a general rule, we are going to reject them because there are a lot of traps at the level of the bulbs and a lot of toxicity associated with the bulbs. If you have absolutely nothing else, you can dig up the plants. If you have bulbs, you need to put them through 2 tests. The first test is that the bulbs must consistently smell very strongly of onion or garlic. First thing. And if that's the case, you can taste them and put them on your lips. If you don't have a burning sensation, and if these 2 conditions are met at that time, you can consume them. That's the only way. Next, we're going to talk about seaweed. So the seaweed. You should know that large seaweeds are never toxic. You have large seaweeds and tiny microalgae. So it's the microalgae that are toxic and can potentially, let's say, spread the toxicity to the large seaweeds in certain areas. So the large seaweeds themselves are never toxic. There are still rules. You always have to take them fresh. If you can dig them up, it's even better. So you can cook them or eat them raw. It's the same. The second rule is that they shouldn't have an unpleasant smell. If they have an unpleasant smell, don't eat them. There could be associated toxicities. And the third rule is that you shouldn't pick or harvest them during an ecological bloom. That is, when you have a sudden warming, usually seasonal. You have an algae bloom, and it's at that time that you have microalgae that can contaminate shellfish, fish, and large algae. So now, if you can't find plants that belong to the first category, namely everything I just explained to you, there are markers to eliminate plants that are potentially toxic. So if you are in an area where you do not recognize any edible plants, you must put the plants you see to the test. Rules that I'm going to give you now. These rules should act as a red flag, and you must reject the plants that match these markers. So when you come across an unknown plant, now first thing, you're going to smell it. If you have an almond, peach, or unpleasant smell, you reject it. Then you have the irritation test. So if it's a plant that irritates your lips, mucous membranes, or even your skin, you reject it. You should avoid shiny leaf plants as well as soapy plants, those that, if you taste them, are a little bit soapy. You reject them. They are often toxic. Do not take red-colored plants, very often toxic. Also reject all mushrooms. Many mushrooms are really deadly, very dangerous when you don't know them. So also avoid, do not take the thorny plants, the thorny bushes, but also the barb. That is to say, these are small plants with little spikes that can be dangerous, very toxic. Sometimes do not take either the beans or the wild peas when you do not know them, which often cause digestive problems. Plants with white sap are to be avoided or milky with a lactale, so you reject them. You should also avoid bulbs. I talked about it, so you have a pretty severe test to put them through. As for berries, these are statistics that I'm going to give you. These are general rules, all of that, but very useful. You should know that white berries and yellow berries are 90% toxic across the planet. You should know that red berries are 50% toxic, and berries that are purplish, black, or bluish are 10 or 20% toxic. So in reality, if we don't know the berries, we can't consume them. It's too risky. Then, never consume plants in the shape of an umbrella. So umbrellas are a set of flowers above the stem that go in the shape of an umbrella, dome, or even a sphere. You need to learn to recognize these flowers. These flowers are often very dangerous, some deadly, although there are some edible ones. Also eliminate everything that is to finish. Eliminate everything that is old plants. The old plants only take fresh plants. So before finishing, you should know that the first thing to do is to learn to recognize the toxic plants of the region in which you are staying. This will prevent you from making a fatal mistake if you switch to survival mode. An important tip as well, as I showed you earlier, always look on the edge of the forest. When possible, Also search scrupulously around ruins and old dwellings, where you can find a lot of resources. There you have it. All these tips make up the course of action to take when you come across plants that you do not know. So it asks to be amplified and clarified. Of course, it's a set of valuable knowledge that will allow you to acquire the right reflexes in survival conditions. I advise you to note down what interested you so as to keep a written record that you can take with you in your bag. And I'll see you soon for a future video.